Tonight we will be discussing whether sexual offenders should be prosecuted, be in prisons or in jails, whereas my opponent feels as though that they may be rehabilitated. I will be on the opposing side of putting offenders into prisons, whereas my opponent would be on the side of rehabilitation. We will be doing rock, paper, scissors to decide who goes first.
Round 1.
Sexual offenders in most states have to notify public officials whenever they move, whenever they are doing anything. They're subject to a curfew in most states. And I believe that group therapy or some form of therapy is the best way to handle treatment for people who deal with sexual offenses. Group therapy is widely used in the treatment of pedophiles, people who are sexually attracted to younger people. It allows the patients with similar problems to share experiences, to confront their behaviors, and to understand motivations that are governing their sexual desires. Most offenders do eventually return to the community, and so we need to change them while they're in treatment rather than just throwing them in a cell and never seeing them ever again.
That's fair, whereas I feel that sexual offenders should be put into prisons because so many times, often than not, when they do get the option to be rehabilitated, half of the time the offense happens again after they get quote-unquote rehabilitated. And when it comes to feeling safe as like a person that's just looking for somewhere to rent out, you don't want your children to be, you don't want to have to look over your shoulder every other day to know who your neighbor is. You want to feel safe and secure in every setting. You don't want to feel as though you have to keep checking over your shoulder, especially if you do have a child.
You're right, you don't want your children to feel unsafe, and so that's why you need to address the problem head on, because there are going to be people that are going to return to the community, and if you haven't dealt with the problem inside, then they're just going to end up reoffending and repeating the problem, and it's going to be a never-ending cycle. We're going to be causing taxpayers more money, keeping them housed in jail, when we could put that money towards beneficial programs like group therapy, finding counseling, and stuff to get people figuring out why they're having these sexual desires in the first place.
Round 2.
Point of the prison/jail sentence is to correct you. Like, your own personal fixing or rehabilitating should be up to you. Because at this point in time, you're a grown adult. Like, you know what you did is wrong because you had to sneak around and do it. Like, you won't go out in public and yell what you did in a group of people because you know it is wrong. So, when you're in that jail cell, you need to be thinking to yourself, how will I never do this again? Or more like, what if I had a kid and someone did that to my kid? Like, there's just things that need to happen when you're in your punishment sentence that you can't get anywhere else.
Group therapy and therapy for people who have sexual desires with younger children is the best option for this particular situation because it helps you deal with the problem head on. And a great example of this is a community that is alive and well. It's called Miracle Village, and it's a community in Florida where all the sexual offenders live together in a secluded area, and it provides a feeling of familiarity. It provides like a homey feeling, and it allows people to have a sense of normalcy because these are people at the end of the day. They're just people with sexual desires. And we can't even forget the fact that a lot of people who are convicted of sexual offenses or sexual offending offenses a lot of times are in consensual relationships with people that are close in age with them but just happen to be under the age limit that is legal to have a consensual relationship in that state.
When it comes to speaking as the victim, how would you feel looking at your child, knowing that your child knows that your child's offender is out there living happy-go-lucky with all the other offenders in the village after they took your child's virtue, innocence, like any of those things? Like, that's just not being state of mind, knowing that the person that took something from you is out there happy-go-lucky with the rest of them. That's not fair. It's not fun. Another example would be Jeffrey Epstein. He never learned a lesson. He never felt sorry for what he did. And it's very important for the offender to feel sorry for what they did. It needs to come out of their mouth. It needs to go to the person that it was done to. Over time, it needs to happen because that's how we know that you're not going to do it again, and that you truly know what you did to this person. So they know in their heart of hearts that they don't got to worry about you no more.
Finish him!
In closing, I feel that treatment is the best option for people who are sexual offenders or dealing with sexual offenses. Everyone who is charged of a sexual offense is not a sexual offender. Instead of, just throwing people in jail, wasting taxpayer money to keep them there, we should be using that money and redirecting it into solving the problem so that it doesn't happen again and we're not seeing the same people getting released from jail, committing the same crime and going back. And some form of counseling, I think, will really be the best way to see a sexual offender problem decrease.
In closing, I feel as though that rehabilitation can be a piece of the sentencing portion when it comes to sexual offenders. Rehabilitation does need to be a part of it. However, they do still need that punishment piece.